As mentioned, my name is Sean Martinez, and I'm the Technical Account Manager here at SolarWinds. Like you mentioned, today we're going to be going over using Orion, the Orion Platform, and a lot of the more advanced aspects or features as to visibility, topology, different ways for us to go ahead and show this in more nuanced and more advanced views. Like I mentioned, I am the Technical Account Manager, so if you have any questions, you can always say if you have any questions after this webinar, feel free to reach out to myself or to our sales team, and then we can get myself or other people on a call with you in case we do need to go any of these more nuanced aspects, because especially as we talk with these types of visibility and views, I have a lot of customers that have, it really depends upon who the view is for, who's going to be viewing it, and then how can we make that's not just an information, but also more actionable. And that really kind of goes into our agenda here today is, how can we leverage our monitoring, our configurations, all the different, visibility of the infrastructure as a whole to be able to build this into different, not only just more granular data, but also leverage and kind of aggregate it into simplified views, especially as we are supporting, whether it's tens of systems, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of systems, servers, applications, storage. How do we give different ways of visualizing these different views, making it accessible to those technicians, maybe management, executive, and then also utilizing what we call DirectLink to be able to make this available as possibly an authenticated view or a basic view for people to see what's going on with the infrastructure, to see what's up or down, but also being able to leverage or embed the metrics into the web pages. And then also talking about API polling. A lot of customers have been asking about, especially not only just with IoT, but really with applications in general, leveraging some sort of extraction layer through the REST SOAP API, so that way we can go ahead and leverage to see what's going on with some of the more newer applications. And I always like to go just a little bit time into the presentation, but I do like to spend a lot of time in the demonstration, in the actual product, showing you how we'll be able to accomplish this different ways, and then as well as give you a lot of different resources, and then have a Q&A at the end. So like I mentioned, is that, really when we ship the product or when you leverage the Orion platform as a whole, we do have a lot of customers that leverage the default summary views as well as like the top 10 views, because we're trying to see what's going on with the infrastructure, whether it's the whole infrastructure or a subset, maybe it's my focused area of responsibility, or based upon the types of systems, the focus set of what they're doing, to be able to kind of bubble up to let us know about what's going on with those systems, and simplify the issue of just having a, green it's up, red it's down, being able to leverage our thresholds, and then also being able to very easily customize and like I said, make this data visible and available for all users. Like I mentioned, one of the things we actually do include with our NOC, with our summary views, or really any of our detail views, is that under your page settings, you can actually go under your settings and enable the NOC view function. So the NOC view is so that we can show you maybe a semi-static screen of maps, resources, take a look and show that data for maybe 15 seconds to a minute or longer if we need to, and then being able to show another page automatically. So it's very common for me to see customers with a TV screen, maybe they have it available in their network operations center or their SOC, or anywhere where they have their operations as a whole. And then also I see a lot of customers that have, usually it's a monitor or a laptop or something on the side of their desk, showing them what's currently going on with the infrastructure as they're going throughout their standard tasks or days. Because I know a lot of customers that sometimes only utilize or make changes in the product, because there's not a whole lot of changes occurring. So they like to see what's going on at a glance, outside of just the standard alert notifications. Now I'll be going over that customization, but also talking about other areas as it relates to utilizing things like our Network Atlas or our Orion Maps view. Because really, like I mentioned, is not only just being able to show and give you the summary view, but also be able to kind of show whether it's a topology, maybe we need to show some sort of group dependency. And so, sometimes we have a lot of customers that like to visualize the infrastructure, kind of like you see here. So this example was with the Army Knowledge Online, kind of showing it how we kind of go between maybe one or multiple data centers feeding up and accessing across to go to that cloud service provider. So how do I make that information visible and capable for whether it's a network person, a server, application manager, or just a help desk person, so that way at the end of the day, when they're looking at this, they can see it's working fine, we're possibly seeing issues, or hey, there is an outage, which is the reason why we might have been getting this ticket or these incoming phone calls. So by being able to leverage, whether it's our network atlas, we also have, like I mentioned, our Orion maps that we can actually leverage to go ahead and visualize this information. Now, there's also an additional webinar I did previously with the about those. So I always say is, if you do want to see a very more granular about the maps, I'll be going over here with it a little bit, but just be aware we do have an additional webinar you can also watch with not only myself, but one of our customers that have kind of gone through a lessons learned of figuring out, how can we make this available, accessible, and actionable to all levels of IT for us. Because like I mentioned here, when we were taking a look at these systems, what a lot of customers do, and this is kind of very, very common from what we see from customers, is that they'll usually have whether it's a Visio diagram or a PowerPoint presentation that they have of the infrastructure or of the various devices in the system. So what it's very common for a lot of customers to do is take and export those as an image, save it as whether it's a JPEG, a GIF, or PNG file, or bitmap, and then being able to utilize that as a background image, so that way we can kind of show overlay the device statuses, and then show more contextually kind of what's going on with the system. Now, like I mentioned, this is showing us a screenshot as it's taking it into Network Atlas, but with our newer Orion maps, it also has a similar function and feature as well, so that way we can just as easily export that or have that as a background image and be able to show that and do all the work from the web console. And I'll be actually walking through this in here as the first part of our demonstration. Now, when we talk about these maps and views, a lot of customers come to us and ask, what are different ways that we can visualize and see what's going on with the infrastructures, for those different levels. This is a great one that we do have. A lot of customers like to sometimes break it out based upon region or area of responsibility, or here, like we can see in the continental U.S., or really the whole U.S. and territory view of the system, so that way if there is some sort of degradation of services or a group of devices in that location, the green round dots are actually kind of giving us maybe a group status of maybe all the network infrastructure, and then the diamonds, or maybe you're showing information as to, like, here it's showing like a site. So if there's a primary and secondary site, we can actually go ahead and show this view. But and then with the grouping availability, especially when we talk about alternative sites and continuity of operations, a lot of customers like to know, in case anything that does go down or has an outage, we know that that's a possible issue, because that system's supposed to be highly available and highly accessible, so that in the instance of that primary or alternate site failing, we want to go ahead and see, is that backup, are we able to fail over as we need to at a moment's notice, maybe due to some sort of outside event that might be occurring due to natural or other events. And so by having that as a quick display here, you can go ahead and have that as like I mentioned, as a group. And with our maps, you can actually have as many sub-level maps as you'd like to create. So it's very common for a customer to have, here, like I mentioned, here we're showing the state, and then when they click into the state, maybe they're going to then maybe the city or metropolitan area, and then under each metropolitan area, then they show each data center location. Keep clicking in, and then maybe we go down to campus location, then we're going down into the building, then going down to floor levels. So it really comes down to the like I mentioned, you can just export those or leverage any image that you might already have, especially with floor plans and things. A lot of customers do already have that information, so they just want to go ahead and export and overlay that with their infrastructure as they'd like to. Now, this is another great way of showing the infrastructure. I would say this one's a little bit more focused on your network. Because you can see here it's kind of showing us kind of the key router or the WAN device as it leaves from each station or area. And I always say is that this is kind of a great example from like what you saw in the previous view. Is the previous view is a great executive level view of is that state or is that region mission capable, and are they able to do their job, or are we having any degradation issues? Here we're looking at a more of a network infrastructure layer, so that way we can see is there an issue with the WAN device, and then looking at the primary, secondary, and tertiary sites, we can then see and determine if there's an outage or issue with those different states or areas, we can then get a different visible or detailed view. Like I mentioned, this is really, I always say it really just depends upon your focus, but this is just a great way of definitely breaking out those different views, especially because I do have a lot of network or systems people that don't care about the seeing the sites as a state. They kind of want to see it as an overall breakdown of each state as it relates to sites and systems, and be able to have that, once again, a click-through model of maps and submaps, but also having a link to maybe the device details, and then also being able to overlay performance data. Now this one's another great one, so that way if there is some sort of if we did want to show different sites, different states, like I mentioned, once again, they're taking advantage of the primary alternate site view, and then being able to see, is there an issue with different sites or views in here. Now we did have to hide redact some information from those gray views, but in here you're actually seeing some information as it relates to the different sites, views, so that if there was some sort of outage, some sort of issue, we can go ahead and see, here very quickly in the New Mexico site, everything is up except for the alternate site. So if that was at like our Santa Fe Las Cruces site, then we can go ahead and say, hey, we were having an issue there, so we can go ahead and have that fed up as a quick visible view in case we did want to go ahead and have that as a group view, but also, like I mentioned, a details page if we need to. Now this is another great view for showing a little bit of the topology, or maybe here this is actually taking a look at topology, but also looking at maybe you're going through some sort of tunnel. We do have a lot of customers that do leverage our products for not only just monitoring one data center, but also monitoring the crypto device going out to maybe one or multiple sites in the system. So especially as as those crypto devices are automatically getting their read keys every 1 or so weeks, they're being updated in case that key had a failure and the site goes down. Then we can see where along the tunnel or which tunnel was possibly having that issue, and then once again overlaying that as a more detailed page. I always say this is a great technician view, because the technicians, we all understand and know a little bit more about how the infrastructure is kind of laid out. So here this is kind of showing us kind of a little bit more of the interconnects as it goes down to each individual site in detail view. And then once again with the red green, they're just overlaying the device status, so that way if there is an issue or a problem with a certain area or subset, we can see that as a quick report here in a view, and then go down into that specific device or that another map or group, and then take a look at maybe some of the root cause analysis. Now, like I mentioned, there's not only just the ability for us to be able to create and leverage maps, but also being able to present and have data accessible for everybody. So there's a really well-known feature in our product called DirectLink, which allows you not only just to embed metrics into the web page, but also allows basically a basic unauthenticated view, so you can see, is it up or what's going on with the infrastructure. So if there is any, if we want to make this available to maybe all users that have Active Directory access, customers will also leverage our Active Directory or LDAP connections, so that way we can have a basic authentication view as a basic view-only page. Now with that, you can always convert those into a URL, so that way if you didn't want to, I have a couple of customers that sometimes even present on their own SolarWinds Orion dashboard page, but also leverage and export this data to be leveraged with other applications, other web servers, websites, especially SharePoint is a very common one, because maybe we're leveraging SharePoint for our data. That way we can kind of see, for mostly a lot of sometimes SolarWinds users, but also non-SolarWinds users, a quick view to let them know, is there an issue or an outage or some problem which might relate to maybe them submitting or updating or even accessing certain pages on those SharePoint views. So especially if you go search SolarWinds DirectLink, There's actually a full guide in there, and that's actually been in our product for well over a decade as a great option, so in case you did need to embed the metrics and have them into a web page. Now, like I mentioned, there's not only just the ability for us to show and be able to access information, but also with the customers like leveraging APIs or REST SOAP from other applications. Maybe we need to feed from other applications, maybe their statuses or systems, and a little bit different visual information. And I'll actually walk through a little bit of creation here with an API polar, so that way in case we did need to support other applications, other monitoring applications, and feed that data up, we can actually have that as an option. So that way if we're doing like a GET request or POST request, we can go ahead and check that data, go ahead and pull that from that web URL, go ahead and set metric thresholds, and then leverage it with our standard monitoring scheme, so that way if there is any high-low statistics, something that's reporting an issue, we can go ahead and only just show it as up or down, but also a warning or critical threshold. Great. So I went ahead and brought up the detail view, or the basic summary page here in the system. So like I mentioned, whenever you install or download or just run the product as a whole, it's going to go ahead and have the quick summary view for you. But you can always very easily click into the pencil icon in case you do need to go into the page settings, and then be able to click to add widgets, and then be able to go if we do need to add any additional maps or views. It's real quick to go ahead and just type in map, hit search, and there's actually 3 different types of maps that we do have. So like I mentioned, our older one, or our longest known one, is our Network Atlas. So we can always just drag on a standard Network Atlas view. But then we also do have our worldwide map view, which is basically like a MapQuest street maps type visible view. One of the great features of that one is that if your devices have geolocation, whether it's the 10-digit grid coordinates or maybe a street address or a city or a zip code, you can go ahead and then have that automatically map the devices in the system. If you actually go under the settings, polling settings area, there's a checkbox to enable geolocation, and once that's enabled, it'll go ahead and then leverage that information, so in case you do want to get that as a visible view. One of the great features I actually had was a customer. It was a train corporation, basically. So on all their trains and all their various systems, they have network devices or network appliances. So as all those systems were traversing, the country or the world, they wanted to go ahead and then show that as a quick visible view. And then you can actually have one or multiple systems. Here it's showing me a group of devices. And that's one of the things you'll see in here, is that when I mouse over, it's not showing me all 17 of the devices. It's just showing me the ones that are having that warning, critical, or full-on outage as an issue. And so by leveraging our thresholds, it not only gives you like I always say, is it takes a step further than just a full-on problem, but maybe a potential problem. So that way, if we do have we're getting close to a CPU or memory or a utilization issue of a system, we can again go ahead and say, hey, we're starting to see this problem, and then whether we want to have this as a quick visible view in here, or also with an alert, be able to go ahead and leverage to show that as a different detail page. I'm going to bring up one of my pages in here. So one of the other things I'm actually bringing up in here real quick is one of our newer, I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison, because we have a lot of customers that have been asking about the differences between the older Network Atlas and our new Orion map system. So what we have is, what a lot of customers like to do is they'll do custom images or everything with an Atlas, and then you can actually have the interface status for that utilization, mouse over for connection information. Similar information will also be shown with the Orion maps. So here I can do custom icon, custom status, be able to show, maybe here I'm going out to my UPSs, so show ahead and leave that as some sort of a visual view. But then one additional step that this also does have under our system is the ability for us to go and set and modify this all through the web console, but then also be able to go back historically. So here I just clicked view history, and it automatically showed us last 24 hours. At the top here, we can actually go ahead and play a historical loop. So let's say that we're going through a shift change and we know that we wanted to take a look at the last 12 or 24 hours. Just set that in here, hit play, and it's going to go ahead and automatically show us where we are in the time period as it's slowly kind of churning and showing the utilization. So if there's maybe a topology change, here I'm seeing that there's a lot of errors or discards that are occurring off of my router, as it's leaving the WAN. So maybe that was some sort of outage or issue that I need to go take a look at. I go ahead and click on that link or click on that device, and it's designed to automatically take the time period that you had in the map and then take it over to our report view, our performance analysis. So now we're now outside of the map taking a look at all that performance information. It'll take a minute here where it's going to then draw out our CPU memory, our events, so that way in case we need to take a look at this as a more contextual view. And this is where really I always say that the power of our product comes in, because we try to give you not only just all the performance data in the same simplified view. So here there was that spike in here. So we can see that there's a couple of issues, but then maybe we want to take a look at, there was just before that spike, there was an event that might have occurred. So previously what a lot of customers would do is click between different views or different pages, but with our performance analysis you can overlay your events and your alerts in the same view, so that way if there was something that did occur here, so that the interface went up and down, and then suddenly there was that spike. So maybe it went up and then someone started traversing a lot of data across the network. That's a great way of seeing that view. Also here with the alerts, and then showing me here at the device level there wasn't an alert, however at the interface level there was an alert or an issue. So you can go ahead and say, here, let's go and focus on that time period, or here, let's take a look at the status information. Now, one of the other areas with our product here is that you can also very easily do real-time polling. So in case I have a lot of metrics on here for real-time, but you can click for real-time and it'll actually start for every 5 or 10 seconds to start seeing what's currently going on with the utilization of the system. So it's very common for a customer to click. You can actually click from the map to take you over into this performance analysis report. You can actually just go and create your own custom one by default. I always say a great view for here is also, let's say that I'm looking at a device that's here in critical, right? So I have a critical Microsoft SQL Server, perfect issue here with high utilization. So here, if I go click in the system, I'll go into my node details page where it has all the performance details, but I want to access that performance analysis report. And we do actually give you a link here. So if I click on this performance analyzer, it'll then leave the node details page, and then it's going to go ahead and start building out that performance analysis report for us. So now, real quick, I can actually get those alerts, events, and performance very quickly without having to, create it from scratch. And one of the nice features too is that once you do save these as a report, they can then be leveraged on any dashboard page. And that's one of the things I always mention with customers, especially with this performance analysis report system, is a lot of customers do want to be able to not only just create a report, but utilize it outside of just their report area. So here I'm showing, like, this one's just a GPU report of utilization, but here we can have maybe just the default time period set of, last 24 hours, the last 7 days, in case I wanted to see the heartbeat of changes. And then there'll be a link taking me back over to the performance analysis report, so that way I can do additional manipulation if I need to, go back more historically. I can do, in the system, there's also other areas like show related. So here I clicked, just because we're looking at the application and I clicked on show relation, it's going to give me the server or the node, and then also maybe any of the volumes or devices, drives that are associated to the system, and any interconnected applications. So that way if I did need to, here I'm looking at this usage, but then I need to also overlay some of the other metrics of the device level. It's just a real quick area of selecting the property and then just a drag and drop to be able to add it to the metric. So here I can actually even drag it into the same report view, and then now we're looking at that memory usage, that GPU memory usage with CPU load at the same time. So that could be one little small report. And one of the things that you can actually do with the system is do a little bit of data sciencing. So if you did need to transform, here we can see that these metrics are very consistent. So maybe we want to show the differences as they occur. So that way we can kind of get a more, to see if there's more of a spike or more of a drop. There's other areas as it talks to, like normalizing, you can smooth the data. So if you did need to, do some sort of additional calculation, accessible view. That's kind of one of the functions that they do have with this system. Now, like I mentioned, there's DirectLink or also really Active Directory access for any user that you can make accessible. So with these views, these are actually a per user, but pretty quickly I can click on share and it will go ahead and create the report for me. So that's a really great function for you in case you do want to get that as a quick report. One of the other ones too is with a lot of customers, I always say is with our system, you can also have the alerts, maybe when the alert is being generated. Here I'm actually generating it into a chat system, but maybe through our standard email, we want to go ahead and have that alert maybe generate the performance analysis report. So that's one of the things that you can actually do, and we do have a SolarWinds Lab video that goes very more into detail where you can actually have things where it's when I click on this, it'll then go ahead and create this report as it relates to maybe CPU memory, interface usage, all that, so that way it's then an additional accessible point or area so that you don't have to go click through and create all these manually. Now real quick, since I talked on the report view, I'm also going to go into the maps real quick. So when I talk to customers and when I see customers, really this is one of the more common ones I do see is a lot of customers want to go ahead and group an overall status or commonality of systems and then be able to break out are there systems that are having performance issues at a glance. So you can use grouping, and like I mentioned, you can also use submaps, so that way, or groups in case we do want to see like what are the systems that might be associated or behind these groups. Now here, let me go ahead and I'm going to go back real quick. There's like I said, there's another view that I like to do in here, which is like your more traditional topology. So here, when we're looking at the topology, this is showing us the utilization or maybe some of the more connections. One of the things we can do is change this from light to dark if we need to. We can change the status. So here it's showing it from between just the status only to custom icons. And really that's what I did in the system was I went under our properties and I was able to add in things like just a router icon. So just hit router icon. I wanted this to be an ellipse so it looked like, just so that way it kind of matched the device. And by default, it's automatically showing that as a status. So when the device goes down, it'll change from green to yellow to red. And then have that as a quick overlay for us as a view. If I did want to have this more detailed, you can actually have that as a little badge at the bottom right like we have with some of these in here. Now also, if we did need to add some additional information, so here we can see, this is very common what you see out of the box with the system. A lot of customers, they drag and drop devices and then they get just simply the display name. But maybe I need to get some other information, whether it's like CPU load. So I can go ahead and click on this. One of the hidden features in the product is that if I shift and I click this insert, it will automatically add CPU load and percentage. It's not really, I think it might be in the admin guide, but that's one of the features that we try to do in here is not only just give you that overlay, but try to simplify that text creation. And then here, if I need to do some positioning, modify the position, because I add more text or here in the system, I maybe need to move it to the center. So it's real simple to go and modify, make those changes. You have word wrap rules, so you can make these very granular if we need to. Now, like I mentioned, not only just with the text, but also with the icons, you can actually change the icon based upon a status. So if there was maybe no issue, maybe I just need to show that router or switch, you could do so. Or maybe, once it goes to a warning or critical, I want you to show other statuses or other icons. So you're not limited to just the ones that we do ship with the product. You can click on Browse, and it'll be able to support PNG, GIF, JPEGs, even SVG files for other images to be brought into the system. So that way, like I said, just go ahead and bring it in here, save those as an icon. Like this one shows my UPS as a quick plug. So that way I know if this UPS goes down, I might have that assigned to a group. So that way it's a visual view letting me know, hey, if that device goes down, I'm going to have some sort of outage. Because like this one in here is currently under maintenance because it's currently set to have its battery replaced this week. Once you do save these maps, we can go back to the view in here. Like I mentioned, go ahead and click on Add Widgets. and then just go ahead and type in, go ahead and bring in any of the maps. Yeah, real quick, the new Orion map is just a quick drag and drop. Click done, and this is usually what it will ask us for, is to choose that map. So here we can say, what size we need to, and then just select that map view, click save, and it's going to go ahead and add that as a quick view in here, and then a link taking you back into that area in case we do want to show that history or topology view. So like I mentioned, that's a great visual view in here. Like I mentioned, it's very common for me to see customers kind of show groups of systems. So here I'm kind of showing the role, especially as we talk to people trying to leverage or making this visible to their higher up. They need to make sure, is there an issue with maybe the security access, VLANs versus the media or our storage space, versus maybe our root DNS servers versus the infrastructure, or maybe there's an issue with internet connectivity. So with the group here, I go ahead and click on this, and it's going to be taking me not only, like I said, not only takes you into the map view or the details view, but here maybe we have a group or multiple systems, so that if one or with the group you can actually have best, mixed, or worst status. So here it's letting me know that this link to AWS was having an issue, which then maybe went to my network performance monitor net path function. So if there was an issue or something going on, we can go ahead and see that and be able to access that pretty quickly. Now also, you'll notice here on my page, I've also included one additional, like I mentioned, you do have custom HTML. This is actually this Discord resource, or like I mentioned, with any chat system like Slack. Basically, all this is an iframe. So this is a very good feature a lot of customers come to us saying is, I'm not only monitoring these applications, but maybe I need to see, who's online as it relates to a chat system or chat view. So here, all I did was I got the link from my Discord system so I could see who's online, and then be able to show a little bit of those different security views for more information. Now also with the view, I always say is when we go into the settings, let's say that we need to go and manipulate the page as a whole. So this is where we can actually go and click on that pencil icon. It'll go into that gear, which we can then go to fully customize the page background. But then here we can go turn on that NOC view function. So here I have 3 different tabs. There's the summary, a maps, and the NOC view. So when I turn on and enable the NOC view checkbox in here, the idea is that every 15 seconds it's going to be on this first page, then it's going to go to the maps page, then it's going to go to the NOC page, and then go back to the top page again. So that's the idea here, is that you can create as many sub-views so that, like I mentioned, if you do have a TV screen or something where people aren't manipulating the site as a whole, we just want to see it at a glance. We're not just looking at one static map or one or few resources. Maybe we can then show, I always say it's a great option a lot of customers do, is they'll show maybe maps for outages and then alerts on one page, and then they'll usually have like a system-centric page, an application, or a network-centric area in case there's an outage. And then one of the things that you can actually leverage in here are view limitations. So per sub-view, one of the things that we'll have is whenever you click or add any resource to a page, especially with a summary page, it'll show us all the devices. But maybe I'm more focused on a small subset of systems. So by clicking on that view limitation, what this is going to do is then limit the page to only show us a small subset. So this is a great feature so that if we do, maybe we're leveraging a copy of that top 10 page or a summary page, and I only want to show, instead of all 15 or 30 data centers, only 1 or 2, or just one data center for that one team. So that's what a lot of customers will do, is they'll click on that view limitation, and then they'll use maybe a category or some sort of property that they've selected or created, so that maybe even naming scheme. So based upon the system name or a group of names or a node name pattern, like I mentioned, we can go ahead and say that if it starts or if it contains this in the system of maybe WAN, then I want you to go ahead and show this only on that page. That's a great feature. Like I mentioned, you can do this at the view level so that everything on the page will have that function. And then also with a lot of our more, if you do click on the edit, you can also filter at the individual view as well. So I do have a lot of customers that used to do like individual filters per resource. And I always say is, especially if you're doing the same filter on multiple different views, like here we're doing one for nodes, maybe one for active alerts, maybe one for top 10 for CPU. Instead of just doing it individually, take advantage of that view limitation on the page, so that way you're not having to manipulate each individual resource to filter or just show a subset of devices. There's a lot of documentation and videos that we do have, especially that we go into, so that in case you do need to do this more granular. Because like I mentioned, the view limitations is really not just limited to the pages, but also for the users. So if I did need to, maybe I'm adding or manipulating some user account in here, that's one of the things that we can also leverage is, once again, that view limitation. So here I clicked on my guest account, and then under here we actually once again have that limitation view. So it's similar setup and similar process. So whether I'm doing it at the page level or I'm doing it at the user level, it's going to have the same click-through model of maybe, once again, this user should only see a certain node name pattern or system pattern or a certain group, and then I could just once again filter that on WAN so that they only see, is there an outage or something as it's leaving or traversing the network, but nothing in detail view as it relates to the systems. Now here, like I mentioned, I've been talking a lot about the API or about the maps. I want to go ahead and also go into the API, because it's been a big question from a lot of customers is, how can I customize or do additional polling of systems? So we do have some default application templates I just want to bring up for you, which is things like Office 365, Atlassian. Also, if we do want to monitor some of the more applications, like I mentioned, with our system, we can actually go and manage. Let me edit mine real quick. So what I did in my system was, first off, I always leverage my variable. We have a great variable-based system, so I always do $ curly bracket IP, so that way I'm not having to recreate and customize each and every request individually. I know maybe I can just copy and paste that in the system, send that request out, and then here I can then see what would be possibly be monitoring here in the system. So this one's doing checking my Komodo root DNS system. So with that one GET request against for the API, we can actually then go ahead and see, set this as a monitor. So what I did was I set this as this is one of my DNS servers that blocks IP. So here I'm monitoring things like what's the block list percentage. If it shows a higher than or less than percentage, it's very easy to then show that as a warning or critical threshold. There's also the ability for us to do a string, so that way if we do need to convert text to more of a numerical value, so that way we know, should this be an alert or are we fine, and then it'll be able to show that message as a message detail view in here. So it's pretty simple for you to actually set up, and not only do you have the ability for just doing just basic authentication or no authentication check against the system, you can set credentials. So if I did need to do it for username, password, maybe an API key or token, you do have a lot of different options. OpenAuth is also another function that you can also use to go ahead and set that as an option. You'll notice also SSL certificate verification. That's an on or off feature that you can very easily turn on. Maybe because a lot of customers like to have that on, especially if they are leveraging the server and application monitors SSL certificate expiration check, because that way, in case that we go past those days, we can still potentially monitor it, even though it's no longer available, but it's technically listed as expired. So like I mentioned, it's pretty easy to go ahead and set these up. By default, when you do check these are by default will do 2 minutes. It's pretty easy for you to just change it. I just did some of mine for 10 minutes in the system. So that way, in case I did need to take a look at the system metrics, the idea here is that you can click on that and it'll go ahead and open it up in the performance analysis report. Or one of the things that we can also do is that if we go under the node details page, we go here. Bring up some of my root DNS servers here under my different groups. Great. Yeah, so with this, one of my Debian servers here, I'm doing that API poll. So outside of the standard system performance, you'll notice that we also add the API pollers as a widget resource on the node details page. So that way we can show, what's the current status. It did the name real quick for me so I can see the information, and then be able to show that back as a little bit more contextual information. If we do need to modify or make some sort of changes, go ahead and click here, go back to the modification, and be able to create or customize to be able to check against these resources. Now once again, I can click on, one of the things I always like to do is I'll click on the Performance Analyzer, and that way I can then go ahead and show some of the system performance, and then real quick we can then show a little bit more about that system. Yeah, so here we have the API pollers. So, not just showing one poller, but maybe I have multiple metrics. Be able to, show and report back a little bit more about the system performance, overlay it, and be able to work, data science the data out here as we need to. Great. So, coming back here to the... So one of the other things I always like to mention is, all of this information, like I mentioned, we do have some videos, a lot of accessibility areas for you. And one of the things that we've been doing here at SolarWinds, especially in the last 1 to 2 years, is working on not only just making the information available, but training visibility. So one of the things that you can always do, if you do go to SolarWinds.com, you can click to go into the customer portal, and one of the things that we'll actually have is the access or the accessibility of going into the into a calendar. So let's say that we want to go into and learn more about those views and maps. There's actually a 4-hour webinar that we do have in the system as a virtual classroom. So maybe we want to go ahead and have our people join that 4-hour event. Some of the hours here, as an example here, is that they're showing some of the times is from 3 a.m. to 7 a.m., from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m., 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So we try to make these hours all throughout the day in case there is any sort of problem, or make it more accessible to all the other users at different times of day. And like I mentioned, there's the accessibility from going from the Success Center. We can go, like I mentioned, you can access it from the customer portal. They do have access to the SolarWinds support. We do also have a lot of access to our accessibility in through our SolarWinds Academy. We have a certification, multiple certifications available now for our products, because a lot of customers not only just want to be good at the product, but be great at troubleshooting and diagnostics. There's actually one certification only around or focused around that one subset of diagnostics and architecture. Or do I want to certify on server monitoring, application monitoring, virtualization, network performance? So be aware there's a lot of trainers and a lot of accessible in here. There's also access to our THWACK forum page, where we have a lot of we had our THWACK event, THWACK camp, about a month ago, which was about a 2 or 3 day event of basically direct access to our product managers, and then us kind of talking about where we are and what we're doing with a company or with the products as a whole, so that way everyone can be up to date about what they're kind of seeing based upon real world. There's also, we do actually now have podcasts and others, so whether it's through that SolarWinds Lab, there's a lot of those options for data accessibility. Like I mentioned, in the customer portal, you can always go there to see the go and access those trainer to schedule. But there's also the accessibility for us to go and take a look at our product licenses, submit tickets, view the where they are on the ticket, is it open, closed, and like I mentioned, all that on-demand training is accessible for you. It's also designed so that if there is any issues or possible issues with like you're running out of maintenance. So especially with our upgrades, as we come out with them pretty regularly, all our customers like to know are you on maintenance, getting close, about 90 days out, or expired. So that way, make sure you're healthy, not only just with your infrastructure but with the applications. Like I mentioned, the Success Center does have a lot of that information, so there's access to articles, videos, a lot of ones in here. There's a couple that are 4 hours long, like the configuring alerts and reports, deploying Orion as a platform, configuring alerts and views. Those are 4-hour live classes that you can go and schedule for. Or maybe we want to go to the live class, or sorry, just the on-demand training of, how do we upgrade, monitoring Microsoft Exchange, utilizing the SolarWinds query language for API accessibility to other applications. Those are actually some of the titles of our classes that I'm seeing right here on the list. But we're always adding more, especially as we are doing our releases. There's also access to release notes, so if you want to see what new features that we're adding. Also upgrade guides, because we do have customers. I've had a few customers that are upgrading products that are 5+ years old, especially as they're bringing it back up on online because they need this visible view. Especially because right now is a great time of year where we can't make infrastructure changes, but everyone's going on vacation. So how do I get this as a quick visible view? Set up a lot of alerts and reports, so that way, on some holiday or something, when all the admins are out of the office, at least the admins or the help desk people can at least get some sort of alert or notification, if there's an outage, but also what severity of the outage, so they know, should we go wake up or contact that person, or is it best left up until they're back up in the office. And like I mentioned with the SolarWinds Academy, there's a lot of trainer access in here. So if you do need to go through those, this is what you'd see on that view on the right side is the ability for us to go through those live classes. Really great videos. Like I mentioned, if you do want to learn more about how to leverage, not only just leverage the product, but conceptually understand how you could utilize this within your different areas. Like I mentioned, we do have the certifications type. Here you can see the 8 of them that we do have right now. Like I mentioned, network performance, network configuration, server and application, access rights, design and architecture, or diagnostics for the certification. And then we're also just introducing our database performance as a new one in here. So be aware that those are all freely accessible. I always say the trainers are accessible. Really, the only thing you're paying for is the test certification, if you do want to go through that route. And then THWACK here, talk about the THWACK community. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of users that have the ability for us to, if you do want to talk to other like individuals, I always say, especially lessons learned. A lot of customers go on there for, not only just for my guide for how to set up smart card authentication, but what are some of the common issues. If there's, I always say is customers sometimes ask us, is it a good time to upgrade? Honestly, I always say go to THWACK, because people are very honest and they'll tell you if there's a problem. And that's the nice thing, is that you have that accessibility to talk to, like I mentioned, other customers to see how they're making the product, how well is it working for them, and you definitely will have a lot of that access here as an option. And if there's any other resources, we do have a lot of resource access. So if you did like to go through some of the documentation, like I mentioned, I always like to go through a mini steps of how you can leverage it. But if you do need to, whether it's go back through this webinar again or look at the more nuanced areas of how you just went through that enable NOC view, where was that checkbox to enable it, and then how can I set up some of those views? Those first two will definitely go in there for creating a view and enabling it. If we did need to go through the maps and systems, we do have the Network Atlas, and then also the Orion maps as an option, and then the API. So how does the API work? Utilizing authorization alerts, and then access for the portal, and all that is available in here. Great. So it looks like I have a couple of questions in here. So one question said, are there plans to detect site-to-site tunnel links on the Orion maps? I'll have to double check and look. I know that we do site-to-site or point-to-point maps in our with some of the systems. One of the things that you can also do is really when we show an entity or something, you can actually, if we don't show the topology automatically, there is a setting at the top to what's called connect objects. So the idea is so that you can select any two interfaces and then show that as an interconnection topology link to go ahead and show that as a possible issue. Another question in here is that, is it possible to monitor a URL from a monitored server point of view rather than from the polling server using SAM? Yeah, so we do have, I always say with the server and application monitor, the focus on the server and application monitor is always monitoring the backend web performance. There is a HTTP view so that we can make sure, can we resolve, if it fails, if it resolves to a 300, 400, 500 code. And also there's HTTP form login. One of the other ones that we also do have is what's called Web Performance Monitor. So especially if we wanted to take a look at the more of the front end about can we access a web server, the Web Performance Monitor is a great tool, so that way I can not only just see if I can access the site, but can I see certain text, certain fields, download verification. And the idea there is to be able to replay and deploy those across the your infrastructure, so that way we can see, is only one area or one subset of the data center or sites having the issue, or is it more of a more global outage that we're actually having. The idea with that web performance is, like I mentioned, is seeing the front end, but also leveraging it and letting you know maybe there's a resource on that page that's having an outage or issue with the system. Another question that came in here is, what were the API Polar templates name again? So, like I mentioned, we support Atlassian, JetBrains. There's Microsoft 365, Azure, and then we also have some for the VMware vCenter. But then also, if you do need to monitor products like our SolarWinds App Optics, Pingdom, Service Desk, those are some of the basic ones that we do include out of the box in case just want to see how you can kind of leverage those. Or, like I mentioned, you can always customize if needed. Yep. So someone mentioning about the Network Atlas, and they see that it's being deprecated over time, and that is a true statement. So one of the things that we're doing is that we are moving away from the Network Atlas tool. Right now, you'll need to recreate the map system. There's no current way to migrate. But if I was going to say, one of the things that I always say is, if you do want to, is definitely put in a feature request if you do want to have that type of function. Oh, last one in here is do we need to how do we access that product training? So, like I mentioned, just to go back to if you go to SolarWinds.com, at the top right of the page, you'll see the link for Customer Portal. You can click on that, and then at the bottom of the Customer Portal login page, you'll see that there is a virtual classroom link, which will show you a calendar, and then be able to, you can then go, click on the virtual classroom's calendar, and it'll actually open up to the calendar as a whole to see like next one that you can register for, and then all the other various links, different areas, in case you do want it to, like I mentioned, work or see some of those on-demand training. Great. So it looks like I might have answered everything up, so I just want to go ahead and thank everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Like I mentioned, if you do have any questions, you always have our contact information in here. And like you mentioned, we will be sending out this recording. Have these PowerPoint presentation in case you do want to take a look at this again. Feel free. Other than that, I always like to mention all of our contact details in case you did want to call our sales team. Also email them. In case here maybe I went through some of these and we want to go over this again, especially as it relates to your focus, your area of responsibility. That's kind of one of the things I'm doing a lot with, especially a lot of our larger customers right now. Is they're in a data hole because, especially between Thanksgiving and New Year's, a lot of people don't make changes. So they're making sure that can we clean up those alerts, reports, these maps, so that way if there is an outage review when we're all on our various vacations, they can go ahead and see it. So I always say is just feel free to contact us. And then everything else too is that we always do have, if there's any product you don't have, we have access to the demos or free trials if you do need to. And with that, I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks.